Welcome to Market Insight for the coming week of August 20th through the 1st of September. We're ending August this week. So, starting with our top-down approach and the monthly chart, we're familiar with this structure of the monthly at this point, right? We made all-time highs back in January last year. And we react down to the lows made in October, I think, of this current year, where a spring triggered the October lows of the last year, where the spring triggered this current rally. That rally paused this current month in August, putting the weekly and daily into trend runs to the downside, right? We've been reacting down. So the monthly reaction is nearing the support of the August 22 highs. We've been talking about this, it feels like ad infinitum, right? 43.27 area. So we may or may not get down to the August highs. We're close, but we didn't get down. We came down to 43.50, I think. So we'll talk more about this on the weekly and daily timeframes. Here, it's just important to note, though, that we're seeing some increased volume. Generally, this is a concern for the bulls, right? Typically, we like to see volume recede on the pullback and not increase. Now, the increased volume doesn't necessarily lead to lower prices. The market could go into a trading range to resolve the supply, or even rally up from here, absorbing it on the way up. So the increased volume isn't, something to say, oh, we're gonna, we've got problems in the market. It's just something to be aware of. We still have another week of trading left in August, right? We have the 28th, 29th, 30th, 31st. So we still have 4 or 5 days left. And we'll see how the week plays out, and especially how the monthly closes. We'll talk about this when we talk more about especially around the daily, especially more in the daily chart. If we close around 4,500 area, right? Let's just put that in here. If we close up in here, even on higher volume, it would be more constructive, right? So we just have to be patient and wait to see. Let's turn now to the daily chart, to the weekly chart, excuse me. Let's find this thing. Do it here. So the weekly closed more constructively than I thought it might on Friday morning. The weekly held the 43.68. The numbers aren't in here. We'll see it on the daily chart, but held this level of support here for the second week in a row. And it does so on the same volume that it did the prior week, the previous week. And this week paints an inside bar with the high and low within the range of the prior week. So basically, the weekly's in congestion. The volume remains relatively high, which, as we talked about on the monthly, is a concern, but it's still holding support for the third time. First time here, second, and now the third time. And there's important support not far down, not far below here, the August 2022 highs. So we anticipate support holding either last week's low at 43.50, and again, we'll see this on the daily, or maybe we drop down a little bit lower, down towards the August highs, perhaps even a little below the August highs, around the 43.27 area. But somewhere in here, I anticipate the market holding. Let's take a look at the daily chart, shift over to the daily here. And when we do, we see the daily is pretty interesting. Last Friday here, a week ago Friday, price became oversold in the daily downtrend. Remember, I said the monthly was reacting, and this creates a trend run on the daily and also on the weekly. So price became oversold in that downtrend channel last Friday, And at the confluence of the demand line of the downtrend channel and this 43.68 level. So it goes a little bit lower than that, down to 43.50, but in general, this area held, right? And it held that area with a kind of like a key reversal bar up, or a reversal bar up, closing firm and closing on an increase in volume. Buyers stepped in aggressively at this level and bought the market. And then Monday, we see follow through to the upside on lighter volume, but we're moving through supply. So that's, the supply on that day coming down, we're moving deep into that, and we're doing so on light volume. It's actually constructive. It's indicating supply is drying up, at least at that level. And then Tuesday did encounter a little bit of supply at that prior Thursday high over here, and it sold down. But the volume was lighter, and price held the 2-day high, Friday's high here, kind of as a pocket area. Let me get a pen here just to do it a little easier. It held that Friday after, this is Thursday here, after failing at Thursday's high, we come back down, but we hold the pocket area and Friday's high, Friday's strong day up. And then Wednesday rallies up into the confluence of the supply line, the daily supply line coming down from August, or a little July, the July highs, and coming into old support here that turns into overhead resistance. And so that causes the daily to close off of the highs, but still look pretty constructive that day. And then we get Thursday. Thursday, truthfully, was a surprise. We see, let me erase this stuff. We see that it sold off. And it wasn't so much the sell-off, but the intensity was more of a surprise. So we were unable to hold Wednesday's high, and we fell back inside the trend channel, and we do so on a widespread down, very high volume, right? Pretty negative in terms of the supply coming in. The positive is that we didn't go lower with price. With all that volume, there's some effort. There's some effort to go down with a less than stellar result. If it were all selling in that volume, we would have seen lower prices, certainly down around 43.50, maybe even lower. Then Friday, so even though it's negative, there was some constructive aspects to Thursday. And then Friday, we get another reversal, same heavy volume, but it holds that 43.68 level as support, and then rallies up to the supply line and closes firm. So there's an obvious struggle going on at this level between the buyers and the sellers. That seems pretty clear. The buyers seem to be gaining the edge, but we've got to be patient. If the prior week's low of, this is how I'm going to be thinking about this, if last week's or the prior week's low of 43.50 is taken out and broken, then we're likely to come down to the August 22 high, to around 43.23, possibly even a little bit lower, but somewhere in this area, we'd expect to see support. So that's to the downside and support. We could still, because of Friday's action, we could hold Friday's low, start to rally up. And in that case, Wednesday and Thursday's highs are the resistance, but it's really this 4,500 level, this key level here, big round number, big round handle. So if we can push up and through the daily supply line and close next week, even around this level, it'd be great if we close above it, but even around 4,500 would be constructive, right? It would bring the monthly up off of the lows. It would bring the weekly into a new high, and the daily would be constructive too. And we then have anticipation of higher prices. So we'll have to see. I mean, that's the way we'll frame out the next week's activities. Let's take a quick look at the point and figure chart. Now, this is the 50 by 1 point and figure chart, 50 box size of 50, one box reversal. And we've been operating from this for a while now. And there's nothing new to report here. So I'm not going to go into the details of all the counts. They're all the same that we've talked about before. They all continue to have the same target projections, which are at or above. This is the all-time high of around 4,800. And you can see we've got projections up to 4,800 and above here. And all those remain intact and continue to be valid. No changes here. So why am I showing this? Well, just showing that this point and figure chart, simply that it's reacting off of its supply line. Here's its supply line coming up off of this demand line, right? And it's just reacting off of the supply line just as we might expect it to. Point and figure charts act the same way as vertical line charts in terms of support and resistance and trend lines and all of that. But what's really important here is that there's no large count of supply in this point and figure chart. There's been no cause built up of distribution to take the market down, not that I can see in here. So perhaps we'll spend some time, maybe around this area in here, building a stepping stone count. We take a stepping stone count that would push us up to, 4,850, 4,800, something like that. But otherwise, I see no significant supply in this chart, just a basic reaction in here so far. So that's constructive, even though we saw last Thursday being negative. I just wanted to point that out. And then let's take a quick look at the indices, the major indices here, before we wrap up. And we can see that the Dow has gotten weak again. It started last Wednesday in here, last Wednesday. And this is Wednesday on the S&Ps and Wednesdays on the Nas. Of course, Dow is in the middle, right? So the weakness started last Wednesday when the Dow and the Nasdaq, when the S&Ps and the Nasdaq rallied, but the Dow remained inside its Tuesday's range, the high and low of Tuesday. So it had an inside bar when the other two markets were rallying. Not especially constructive. And then it falls harder. It tries to get up over the highs here, whatever these are of the prior week, fails to do so, and then comes down. And so the Dow makes new lows here, new relative lows, where the S&Ps and the Nasdaq did not. So which is going to prevail? We'll have to see. I'll be watching the Dow. If we're going to be dragged, if the other markets are going to be dragged down, Dow is going to come down into this level where there's confluence of support here. So that may pull us back down to the 43.50 level on the S&Ps, or it could even pull us down to the August highs, depending on how this gets going. So we'll watch this, right? I'll be watching the Dow to see if it's going to be selling off early next week, or if it's showing signs of recovery and likely to pull the other markets on up. So for this week coming, we just have deep practice on Thursday at our normal time. I do want to just highlight if you haven't seen it yet, we did David's chapter 8 last week, chart studies, and there are a couple of really nice chart studies in there. I would encourage you to take a look at it. It's in the members area if you haven't yet. It's a good chapter to study. Otherwise, I'll see you next Thursday. So have a great weekend, everyone, and a good trading week next week. And I'll see you in deep practice on August 31st. Take care now. Bye-bye.